do, because what we're going to do, this is just an opener for conversation. We pulled this together kind of swiftly, kind of quickly. We weren't able to really promote it the way we wanted to, but I want to thank specifically Dr. Chris Banks for being here, as well as Dr. McComb, to raise awareness on a number of issues, a myriad of issues that we have as a community. So we want to kind of open the floor for that. Come on up here, Bryce, and we'll be able to do that. Alrighty, so at this time you can introduce yourself.
My name is Chris Banks. I'm a local community activist out in East New York. I'm also the executive director for a non-for-profit in East New York. I'm the vice president for the police council at the 75th precinct. Actually, also I'm a member of the Community Board 5. So, and also I'm a member of Changing Lives Christian Center.
And you, sir?
Well, praise the Lord. Thank you for the invitation, Bishop, and to Brother Gross in his absence. But I am delighted to be able to be here to share dialogue with you regarding this Justice Summit. My name is Reverend Kevin McCall. I'm the National Crisis Director for the National Action Network. I'm also the President chapter of the Brooklyn East chapter for the National Action Network, which covers Brownsville, East New York, and Canarsie. I am also a pastor of the Community Action Church, which is in Brownsville, Brooklyn. And I think that's it. I ain't gonna go down the list of what I am, but those are really my titles in terms of what, and I'm a servant of God as well.
Amen.
God bless you all. My name is Bryce. I'm Elder Bryce Hicks from the Cathedral of Greater Faith in the Bronx, New York. I'm a team leader, and I don't know why else I'm here. Thank you. I'm just Bryce.
Telling your credential.
I hold a Master of Divinity degree in theology from New York Theological Seminary. That's it. I think that's all I have.
Well, first of all, we want to we'll start with you. Just provide some clarity on our gathering. Book of the Bible declares in Amos chapter 5, verse 24, let justice roll on like a river and righteousness like a never failing stream. In recent times, we've seen a whole lot. This is an election year, and it's a time in which everything that could be shaken is being shaken. From the recent crisis in Flint, Michigan, to the no indictments that we have seen across our nation, to the community crisis that we have on a day-to-day basis. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? With all the stuff that's going on, what's your take on all of this?
Yeah, I think because of the times we're living in now we have to get justice at the ballot. We've been through the marching when we organized around the whole Gardner situation with the murder of Eric Gardner. But now with the election year coming up, you know, we now have to change the strategy on how we go about getting justice. There has to be a look at the criminal justice system, but now it's time to hold elected officials accountable. And you know, I don't want to get knee deep into the politics of, but nevertheless, we can't be afraid to talk politics in church.
True.
Because everything is connected. And especially with the presidential election, you know, we always say politics is local, and I do agree with that. But we do have a opportunity now to truly examine those folks who run for president and to see where their positions are when it comes to criminal justice reform, when it comes to bread and butter issues that affects Main Street communities like East New York, Brownsville, you name it, which are the catch basins for young black men who augment the population in the prison industrial system. So these are the things we have to look at. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't come in to talk about who I'm supporting, but the person I'm supporting is the person that's talking about criminal justice reform, that's looking at issues on how we redistribute monies to impact and build up communities that have been degraded or forgotten about for years. And one of the things I want to just throw out there, this is to me a big reform that I think needs to be done and obviously should be looked at. A lot of folks know that when the census is counted, when young black men leave Brownsville in East New York and they go upstate New York, they're counted in the census where they're serving their time at. And that to me makes no sense. They should be counted where they live at, where their address is at. So what happens is that a community which is lily white, upstate New York, benefits financially when the monies are cut up when it comes to budgetary wise down in DC. And don't forget, the census is based off of the apportionment number. So that means that for every person, that's how the dollar is distributed. So those are that's one of I think the key criminal justice reforms, or where it touches the criminal justice system, and then it touches also how we go about cutting up the budget of the federal government. You know, money talks. And we know at the end of the day that there are a lot of things in our community that have been forgotten, left behind. We know there are monies that are needed to bring some type of change or to infuse into the community, so we can talk about jobs, we can talk about building entrepreneurs, you name it. These monies can go to also supporting programs that support trade schools, that support this idea of college tuition for 2 years. I mean, a free city or state college tuition for 2 years. So we're talking about a rediversion, a total radical reform on how we look at going about bringing about justice to a people through true criminal justice reform.
Reverend McCall, you're on the move. You see a lot, especially working with Reverend Sharpton and a lot of the things that are going on in that regard. What's your take on some of the things that you're sensing? And I want to say this because we're recording live, and also we can agree to disagree, and our objective is not for us to think on the same lines. That's why we're sitting here, but for us to be able to just share constructively and to think, which is something that the church really needs to do that we don't see done today.
Well, first of all, to answer your first question, in terms of what we need to be able to do at this particular pivotal time, it's very important that we register to vote. That's very, very important. Some folks, young folks, have not registered to vote. Some folks only voted in the election when Obama, and that was in 2008. And we had plenty of elections that happened that was pivotal in our election process for folks to make a difference and to make the change in our local community. You have city council race, you have a assembly race, you have a mayor's race, you have a congressional race, and you have a U.S. Senate and a governor's race. All these races are important because these are the people who we pay our taxes to, and these are the people that will represent us. So you have to be able to be registered to vote. So that's to answer the first question in terms of what is that's the first step, because you can't do anything if you ain't registered to vote for something and be a part of the process. And in terms of being seen a lot, I've been around a little bit in terms of in politics and also in community activism. And I have many conversations in churches in terms of how does politics, community activism connects to the church. Well, it was connected from beginning of time. Jesus was a community activist. Jesus was a politician. Jesus was the person that he had with him always was the poor. He had these people, the average person, with them all the time. He took nothing and made something into it. And so that it was connected already. We don't deal with it in terms of what happens on the outside of the church, but we have more politicians inside the church than on the outside. There's politics that's in the church that we don't talk about, but there's politics also on the outside of the church that we do talk about and that we see on the news daily. So we have to be able to be connected and really understand that politics are necessary to have the discussion and really bring local about the discussion about having community activism. And it does not take a lot to really be a community activist. I mean, at all. You don't have to be able to do, because this is your community. You live here, you work here, you come home here, you breathe the air here. So this is your community. So you cannot be afraid to walk around your own block or see something on the news and just say, oh, that's sad that happened to them, but don't do nothing about it. As well as our organization, National Action Network, and myself, as big critics of the police department and all the injustice that has been going around across the country, from every big case from Eric Garner to Michael Brown to Trayvon Martin, all the way down to in Baltimore. We have been involved in those aspects. As much as we're critical of the police department, I'm also a critic of us, because we have to be able to deal with the issues that affect us and that we are killing us. Just as when I came here today, I just got the call that 2 young people got shot in Brownsville on 95th Street. Yesterday, there were young people that got shot just yesterday. So we're talking about Black Lives Matter, but we don't even care about our own Black lives when we're killing one another daily. Right. This year alone, I've already attended 96 funerals in a matter of 2 months. Last year, I went to 238 funerals. So if we're talking about really Black Lives Matter, then we have to really deal with us, because we're killing us. And out of those funerals that I've been to last year, only 50% of them, actually 75% of them, were under the age of 40, of black men and women, not just black men. We get it twisted because we think that men kill. No, women kill too. And women shoot each other, and women stab each other too. So we have to be able to deal with the epidemic that's going on. Because no, we quick to beat up black men. But the women is just as well of things that are happening. So we cannot be so quick to say Black Lives Matter and don't get with us as black issues. So when we say that, we have to really mean that and really understand the systemic behind that. If black lives really do matter, do things that are black, that can be able to make effective change, not on just you personally, but around your community as well.
Right. That was incredible. Give him a hand for that. That was a big step ahead for that. Bryce, before you go, now you said you attended how many funerals?
96.
So far.
Yesterday was 96.
And last year, how many did you attend?
238.
238.
238. And
75% of them were under the age of 40.
Under the age of 40.
Wow. And before we went up here and we were talking downstairs, and I had said to you, oftentimes we don't talk about how important these issues are until it happens on our street.
That's right.
Until it happens in our neighborhood. I've done several funerals of people that I went to school for that were killed, and I've preached them, buried them, watched their own children bury them, and they're not even 30 years old, and they have a little child. I've done it several times. Pastor K, we've done it several times, and it's until sometimes it hits your block, your neighborhood, your house, then you want the world to stop.
That's right.
And call everybody to carpet and call everybody to task. And so it's so phenomenal that you are committed the way you are. And sometimes we play a deaf ear to this until something national or massive happens.
Correct.
And one of the fears that I have about social media, and I want Bryce to also chime in on this too, is that our thoughts diminish in flight. And so sometimes the moment we put a status up or we post something, we think that just because that one thing happened and now everything's supposed to just change. But I think that consistency is always the key to success. And we have systemic issues in our community that other neighborhoods and communities and other ethnic groups don't have. When you look at the economic disparities, I went to go set up an account for something recently for a project that I'm looking to work on, and the kind of question I was getting, I thought I was being vetted for something. I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, I'm doing the right thing. Well, sir, what do you anticipate? And so I guess I said, well, maybe if I would have put my 3-piece on, I would have been, and then there's others with hoodies on that walk right in, different, and so the reality of that, I walked outside one night of not this church, but one of the churches I was over years ago, painting. I was painting and walked outside with my paint clothes on and got stopped. You know, was putting my garbage out outside of my house in the bathroom and got frisked. You know, so I've experienced it. You know, so I'm not talking about something I heard. You know, I've seen it. You know, and so being able to look at that and to address the reality and calling our own community to accountability. You know, we want to bash other people and all kinds of stuff when someone else does something to us, but it's what we do to each other, how we speak to each other, what we allow to each other, that really sets the tone for that. So I'm so grateful for that. Bryce, chime in, man. This guy is a genius. He's a genius.
Yeah, so much has already been said. I think that one of the most important things that we need to do, as in particular when we speak about the church and the church's involvement in changing the social economic status of our communities, is empower our people through education. I think that we fail to recognize how critical it is that education is what positions our youth, our young adults, our middle-aged adults to be able to position themselves to be more effective in changing the world. And we have to recognize that we have the capacity to be catalysts for change even in our local communities. So that's why we have the responsibility to make sure that we're speaking to our councilmen and our assemblymen. Like I was watching a documentary the other day, and it's on gun control, and it was talking specifically about how it's the persons that actually write to their government officials that have that type of influence. But most people don't know that if they simply write a letter, that their government official will actually hear what they say. So we have to come to know how powerful our voices are in changing the social issues that are plaguing our communities. And like my brother said, can you tell me your name again?
Reverend Kevin McCall.
Kevin McCall, Reverend McCall. Reverend McCall was talking about particularly Jesus and how Jesus was a political figure. I think our churches have taken Jesus' status in such a place that we make everything spiritual, and we forget that we have to also be social. So that after you're heightened spiritually, there's a responsibility that each one of us has, and that is to affect our world. And so when Jesus prays the prayer, you know, Father, give us this day our daily bread, he's not praying this as an analogy or any type of mythological dialogue. He's speaking specifically to the social issues that are plaguing the community. The people are suffering. The people don't have what they need. And so, God, we're asking you to give us bread to eat. And so we have to know that our responsibility is if one person is suffering, everybody's suffering. If one person is struggling, everybody's struggling. And so how can we get back into changing the world if we don't know we have the power inside of us to do that? And so it's teaching, it's informing, it's sending our kids not just to become music producers. Not that those are bad careers, but I'm just saying we have to make sure that they're going into the colleges and being developed and understanding politics and understanding that if we can change through education and empowering ourselves, we'll have more influence, more ability, we'll establish new networks, we'll be able to recognize how we can transition what we know into places outside of just where we are at the moment. And so I think we just have to really work in education and know, like even when you talked about Facebook and putting up statuses, your status doesn't change the status. And, you know, so
somebody put that out.
So we've got to recognize that just writing something is not going to change if I'm not willing to go out into the world and speak to people that are in positions of power and try to change it. So we've got to get out into the community. We've got to be there when our government officials are working. We've got to be there when our councilmen are speaking. We've got to write these letters. We've got to talk about the issues that are going on, not just feel like I'm not gonna worry about it, like we said, because it doesn't directly affect me. If someone is struggling, you're struggling too. And we're all in this fight together, attempting to change the dynamic of our world. So we've got to get out there, we've got to be involved, we've got to be knowledgeable, we've got to read, we've got to study, we've got to do everything that it takes to make sure that even when we write the letters, that it's informative, that we understand the dynamics of the situations, that we understand the problems, that we're not just writing uninformed. So we've got to be ready in all aspects of who we are to be able to shape the neighbors that are in our social circles.
And to piggyback on to what he said in terms of the church, the church is so mundane. They don't know how to. I don't get invited to a lot of churches because of the simple fact that I preach truth to power, and I'm not just about all of that shouting and speaking in tongues and flowing on the floor. All of that stuff is good. Don't get me wrong. The Holy Spirit comes, and God, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. All that stuff is good. But after you do all of that, you still need a job.
Yes, sir.
That's right.
You still got no food. There's so many people that in churches that they do all of that on a Sunday, and then Monday they're in my office.
Right, struggling.
So you need to be able to be connected to the church and be consistent, like you said, because a lot of churches, just like when it happened with Trayvon Martin, they said, well, the church won't be silent. And they had this big meeting with all these big preachers, with these mega ministries, and they had thousands of all these bishops, and they were coming on Sunday, and no one was wearing black and all that. But that was just one Sunday.
One Sunday.
And then the next week came, you had 10 shootings in New York City. 10 shootings, and none of them preachers said nothing about it at all. 10 shootings. So it was just it's like a one-night stand that they did regarding the issue of Black Lives Really Matter with the church. With the church. So we cannot, it has to be a connection between the church and the community, and really being developed, and not just do things for political reasons, or not doing things because you want a building across the street, or you want some lot, or you want some funding for something, or you want some political clout with something. It's about really being active in the community and know your rights, because a lot of us don't know our rights. That's another thing too. We don't know what to do if we stop by the police, at all. We don't know what to do. We don't know that we don't have to open our door if the police don't have a warrant. For a lot of people don't know that. You don't have to open up the door at all. If they don't have a warrant, you can talk to them from the peephole and watch them. And you don't have to be able. And the good thing about social media is the power of video recording.
Yeah, sure.
Video. Only reason why they believe us, back in the early 60s, 70s, they didn't have that back then.
Right.
And now we got proof. Only reason why they believe us now because we got proof with Eric Garner and gentlemen in Baltimore and other areas. They have proof of these things going on now. So the power is in the video of knowing your rights, knowing your history, and not just accepting anything being that. I just have to go, but I wanted to stop by to just address y'all, to be able to tell. I want to live up to my commitment to Brother Gross, and I thank you for inviting me. But we need to continue these little dialogues. Never think because of small beginnings and things doesn't grow. Because 10 people, she know 10 people, he know, and once you keep going, that's how you affect change. Martin Luther King, his first rally, he only had 20 people.
That's right.
And now what? The March on Washington had thousands.
That's right.
And that's the speech that we know, that we hear every day. So you never know what's going to spark a movement or spark change. And they can start right here in this church.
Before you go,
well, let me just,
because you're about to go too.
Yeah, we're going to cut out. But one of the key things, and I think it was important that the brother said, being informed. Because let's be real, there are a lot of folks that are not informed, and the Bible says you perish for lack of knowledge, right? So we want to make sure that we are informed and we articulate, because we know we have to go beyond the call when we have to get up and speak before an audience, or when we have to please the court, I would say, in a more formal speak. We need to be informed, and I think that's going to be key, because knowledge is power. And we gotta just educate our folks, drill down on, folks get up and talk, but they talk in circles. You can listen to some folks and know if they truly are in depth, have drilled down on a particular issue. Because the times that we're living in, you can't sell people chicken dinners anymore. That's right. We need substance.
That's right.
We need things that's gonna take us beyond, because the position that we're in as a community, now we're in dire need. That's right. And I would say it's a crisis.
It is.
Because you would think that because of where we've come from as a people, don't forget, we had the 60s. Right. There was a lot of social outcomes that came out that were positive, that better. Listen, the Voting Rights Act came out in the 60s. Going on, there's other decisions that came from the Supreme Court. And now we're talking about appointing a nominee to the Supreme Court. Understand the importance.
That's right.
You know, when you hear folks talk about don't give the president the right to pick the nominee when he's the president
Of the United States.
and the Constitution, it gives the power to the president to nominate,
That's right.
and the power to the Senate to confirm
That's right.
and consent. Listen to that. In the Constitution, it says that.
Yep.
That's the law we follow, right? And here you have senators obstructing, saying, no, let's wait till the next election. Let the will of the people in the next election determine who the...
It's a ploy.
It is disrespectful. It borders racism. It is racist. Let's call it for what it is. It is racist. So these are the things we have to pay attention to. And that's why this election is so important. When I say if we don't get involved in this election, if we don't activate our activism and get involved and go to the polls and let them know that we are here, we matter, we will perish. Because what they're talking about on the other side, you listen, if you're not paying attention, you better wake up. All I gotta say is Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz. You go, Ben Carson, good brother.
I know Chris is going, thank God.
But thank God he's back in Jersey, dealing with Jersey.
Jesus.
But these are the things we have to pay attention to, because what they're talking about is devastating. And don't let these folks fool you and tell you, because he's Spanish, he understands.
Yeah, because he's...
I haven't heard Ted Cruz speak in Spanish.
I didn't know he was Hispanic.
Thank you.
You so the trickology that's used.
That's right.
So don't sometimes you have to. One day I was sitting down looking at the Republican debate, and I said you have to purposefully mislead yourself to sit down and really listen to these people. But I think it's good. You should know thy enemy and listen to their policies and the things that the plan, the vision. So when you hear them say, we're going to take back America, we're going to restore America back to its